Hello and welcome to Hardcast, where we'll all be experiencing a perfect day. I'm Humphrey Erm.
And I'm Christian Claus.
Lifeline. Give me Harbinger Volume 4. Perfect Day. Well, first of all, first question, did you expect the ending of the first chapter?
No, I did not.
So how was that? I'm just curious, what's the immediate reaction after, reading it and then like, what?
Yeah, pretty much. What the fuck? I don't like this.
How so? Like not like it? How? Like in just on the content wise, or like poorly written, or how?
Well, because it came as like such a left field kind of thing. Like it came out of left field, where I don't know. I think it would have been nicer for me personally if there were some indications on the other, like in the chapter before it, that this wasn't real, because it's kind of hard to determine what is real and what isn't real in a place where everyone's talking about, or in a comic where everyone's talking about, having these psionic powers and a lot to do with the mind and a lot to do with all this kind of stuff. So all this time I was thinking like, okay, she's being controlled by a psiot or something like that. In the sense of like all these kind of visions that she's having, maybe there was some sort of big evil villain in the water or something like that coming out to get them. That's going to be their next thing or something like that. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where I felt like it was just too crazy. And I mean, obviously if you read then the rest of the volume, you kind of understood what it was and why it happened and all that kind of stuff. But I just didn't feel satisfied when I was reading it. I felt like it was kind of cheap.
Yes, shock value.
Yeah, it was a shock value end of the... It was kind of like that like commercial break thing in a TV show. Or like, I hate that kind of thing where in a TV show they come in and they're like, hey, I'm pregnant. And everyone's like, oh my God, cut to commercial. And then come back from a commercial. Have you tested? Have you tested yourself yet? No, but I'm 2 days late. And she's like, then you're not fucking pregnant. It's just that stupid thing. The uterus
is just lazy.
Yeah, well, it's because like, being late is so like normal, especially if you're like not on the pill or anything like that. So I just feel like it's such a cheap way to get people to, it's a cheap cliffhanger. And it felt like this as well. Like everything's going fine. Everything's happy. The group is just assholes in the beginning. I mean, very unlikable, the entire first part where they're just being dicks.
How different is that from the other volumes?
No, that's what I mean. Is that I was just reading this and going like, well, yeah, this is why I don't like this comic. They're just so being dicks all the time.
Actually, that works into another question I had. Like, how long did it take for you to realize it was, a controlled dream, but a dream nonetheless?
Well, I mean, when they revealed it.
So, all right. I love that, though. As you mentioned, like, you didn't see any... I mean, obviously, their actions were their own in a sense. They weren't forcing their actions, they were just creating the environment for them. But, what's it called? No, I guess I really love the whole, I just love the fact that you didn't find like anything odd, really. Just, nope, they were being assholes as per usual.
Yeah, well, because everything they were doing just seemed status quo. I mean, what's his name? Peter using his powers to get fancy cars. That's just typical. I mean, he got a woman to sleep with him because of that. I mean, what difference does it make that he now steals cars too? And then everyone going their own way, doing whatever they want. No thing. This all felt very status quo. Everyone's just being dicks. I mean, obviously then when that whole thing happened at the party where Chris started seeing herself, then I thought like, okay, something's weird here. But again, it's hard to say what's weird in a world that is weird.
That is, I didn't consider that when you mentioned that earlier. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, this isn't a surprise in that sense. Like it could have been some psionic controlling water or something.
Exactly. It could also be just, I mean, again, that's the problem when everything has to do with like the mind and people being able to go into other people's minds and manipulating them and stuff like that. So all I could think of right here is that this person is giving Chris some sort of fever nightmare or some sort of like visions of stuff. Or, I don't know. I mean, maybe Chris is starting to discover her own powers. That could also be a thing that she does have some latent powers, and this comic is about her kind of coming to terms with it, or figuring out how it all works, and maybe it has something to do with water or something like that, and I don't know. So, I was just sitting here reading it and just kind of like, yeah, this is, everything's fine, and then when she killed Torque, I mean, that whole sequence just was weird. Like the whole thing, like, imagine that I'm your mommy. It's just like, okay, that's not weird or creepy at all.
As he says.
Yeah, but then just like the beating him up with the thing, it just felt so like, again, out of left field. Like there was no indication that she was going to be doing anything like this. There was nothing to show that she like was somehow evil or something like that. And then especially when we went to Torcala, I mean, that was like this part where I was kind of, I don't know, it was weird because she was so happy about it. So I'm thinking like, okay, maybe she knows something more, or maybe that wasn't the real Torque or something like that. But I mean, I thought they were going to keep it like that Torque actually was going to die, because doesn't he die in the 90s version as well?
So yeah, no, I think that was I'm sure that it was good for like old time readers reading it. So they would have thought like, oh, okay, so they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a bit of a fake out, at least for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, again, this whole thing was just really weird. But as I said, I can't differentiate between what is weird in that world, because technically everything could be weird.
No, but you're right.
I mean,
but you're right. It's like they always bring up in any kind of. I mean, it's like that Justice League episode, that early one with Gorilla Grodd.
Mm-hmm.
So if the monkey talked to you, Flash, hey, we got a Martian on speed dial. Can you give me the benefit of the doubt?
Right.
And the same thing with any time, like I really like that in the Marvel Runaways. So where they had this one, this hero has gone bad. Then all the heroes are on the hunt for him.
Yeah.
But as he points out himself, look, guys, it's not like we haven't met shapeshifters or mind controllers and stuff before. Why don't we consider those options first?
Exactly.
So, and I guess that's both the kind of fun part with these kinds of universes, but also the trickiness in terms of how do we set a baseline. Like when is something weird, when we have made up rules.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's why these universes have to have a certain set of rules, and rules that they aren't allowed to break. And that's really hard to do, because you get this idea for a really cool story, but then it breaks some sort of fundamental rule that you've already set for that universe. And then you have to think like, okay, well, how do we now break this but still make it feel like it's normal, or maybe how do we make it so that people understand that it's not normal? So I don't know. I mean, I think it could have been done really interestingly if like in the background we could have seen like Toyo Harada, or we could have kind of gotten glimpses, or like like how in the Matrix, like you can have these twins, for example, or like deja vu stuff.
Well,
like,
I think
it would be really interesting if you could have that in the background.
I think there was a little bit of it. Like, at least, if you remember in the first chapter, there was this one guy who was giving away the flyers for that hippie party thing.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I saw his same character design in Torcala. And I felt he was distinct enough with his kind of dreads and stuff that I'm not sure if that was supposed to be.
Yeah, but that's not as obvious, because, first of all, there's like a month in between those two issues. And second of all, it's like... it could also be because we don't know where we are. We don't know if we're in a dream or if we're dead. And again, there's a whole thing about dreams. You never see people that you've never seen before. Your brain, remembers these people and puts them in your dream. So if this is a dream for Torque, that might be that this background character gets reused. But I think that would be more interesting if, like, in big splash pages where, like, for example, they're driving through running through the I guess it would be the pier or whatever. That then we would see the same people in the background, or you could just have a splash page where it's obvious that there's like two people who are the exact same standing next to each other, or as I said, like have Toyo Harada somewhere, or some kind of like these background things that we can maybe pick up on, or if we know and we read it again, we can actually see certain things that make us feel like, wait, this is not right, or like, you know what I mean? Like if you watch a movie, like if you watch what's it called? What's that movie called? The one that plays backwards.
Oh, Memento.
Memento, right? It's like, you know, like if you watch Memento again, you know, you understand it. You can see stuff in the background, or like watching Sixth Sense.
Well, yeah, that's the perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can start seeing things that, you know, you didn't really notice before, like the whole dinner scene that he had with his wife. That he was actually not sitting there, but it still makes sense when you watch it again. You're like, oh my God, she doesn't actually ever acknowledge him, that someone's sitting there. So, you know, that kind of stuff I would have liked to have in this first chapter, where, you know, you might think at first like, oh, this is lazy art because they're using the same background character so many times, or, you know, oh, doesn't that look like Harada, or why isn't he then, you know, being talked about, or why don't they see him, or something like that, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And then when you get to the next chapter, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. This is like a fantasy thing.
Honestly, I want to get a hold of this one, what's called Papyrinic issue for you to read, because I think that one does all of that stuff perfectly.
Okay, great.
But you know Papyrinic, the Super Donald?
Nope.
But you know Donald Duck's superhero persona?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that exists. I have a Swedish issue of that where it does exactly what you want, and so perfectly. I remember being so shocked when reading it. In a goddamn Donald Duck comic.
Yeah.
Because throughout the issue, since it's just one issue with like a really long one, so everything's told at once. But there is one specific character design that's, you know, amusing enough that you kind of notice it. But it does pop up a little too often, and always in different roles. So it's kind of like he's background character, now he's the ice cream salesman, now all this stuff. And then throughout the adventure, Donald finally notices it. And then after having heard something from some stranger, he buys 3 different packs of the chips.
Yeah.
Opens them up and realizes that they contain exactly the same kinds of chips, like the same shapes and amount. And then that's enough to kind of for him to trigger that he's inside a virtual reality, and it's a computer simulation that has recreated. So he's made 1 pack of chips and duplicated them.
Yeah.
And same thing with, you know, he only has a certain amount of people, so that he's reusing. And there's this goddamn beautiful panel of Donald I mean, immediately it sounds so silly because it's Donald fucking Duck. But this beautiful panel of him sitting at his dinner table with these piles of chips in front of him, and he's kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah, I like that because there's this thing that you can't actually read in dreams.
That's the thing that was in that Batman episode.
Yeah, I actually found out about it in that Batman episode, and it's actually true. You can't read in dreams, that there's a brain thing that doesn't like meld well. But of course your dream, it will like make you think that you can read it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's assuming, like you're not actually, because it's your brain, so you kind of already know it.
Yeah, right.
So like if I'm, yeah,
well, so that was kind of my thing where I can't, like, you know, there's the whole thing about like lucid dreaming and stuff like that. And I actually have that. I actually wake up every time I read something in a dream because of that Batman episode. So I always have this moment where if I read something in a dream, I always recognize that I can't actually read this, and I actually try to read it in the dream, and then I realize that I'm dreaming, and then zack, I wake up. And that would have been something interesting to put into this comic, that they try to read something, but they don't read what's actually on the paper. that would have been an interesting thing to like show kind of them reading like the.
Well, it would have to be very clear then, because it's very common, for example, in comics and animation.
Yeah, that you don't actually see the words.
Well, that they, depending on what kind, it's, either scribbles, to show that it's just cursive from afar.
Yeah.
So, like, little things like that, you'd have to make it clear that, okay, no, this is not just a artist shorthand. That this is actually the way it looks.
Yeah, but... Oh, that's what I mean is that, you can always like have something written down that's different and then them reading it, but saying something different. Like they read it aloud to the other people. Like, where's this metal band playing? And it could say that it was playing in whatever. And then they read it and they say something else. And then we would think like, wait, what's going on? And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's too like advanced kind of, maybe it would be too subtle. Or not, or it would be the opposite of subtle, but people wouldn't understand it because it would be like a throwaway kind of thing. But what I am noticing here is now the sea lion thing. And I felt that was a way that they wanted to kind of show that something's different or something's too coincidental.
Torque's, because that's Torque's vision of that then.
Yeah, well, not just those sea lions and that, but like the metal band that they're listening to is also called the Sea Lion. So I'm thinking,
I guess that is their way of kind of that it's just reusing material because they can't put in new things, as you said.
Yeah, but it's too subtle, I feel. Because I did not pick up on this. I just saw that, she was being attacked by the sea lions. They talked about the sea lions at the beginning. And then now, way at the end, she gets attacked by sea lions, and then the band is called the Sea Lions. I think if the techno band that they were listening to was also called the Sea Lions, and like they passed a football team or whatever that's also called the Sea Lions, and they take a drug that's also called the Sea Lion, that kind of stuff. Like because
that is repeated too much for you not to notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
because
the fuck is with this guy in Sea Lions?
Yeah, no, but like here it's just one coincidence. For me, I feel like it's just a coincidence. I didn't even pick up on it. I just kept on reading. I'm just like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just like,
probably too highbrow for you, Chris.
No, it's just I don't know. Shut up.
So no, but I get what you mean. It's and again, we're reading it differently than the monthly readers would have.
Yeah.
Of course, for the monthly reader, they'd have a month with, okay, Chris just beat the Torque's head in. And then, from there, getting weirder and weirder.
Which, again, is just such a, it's just such a bad cliffhanger because it doesn't actually get paid off at all.
Well, yeah, it's just as it turns out that he's fine.
Exactly.
But in that case, in this case, I guess it works differently because there is a result of it, proving that there is something wrong, within the world. Like, okay, no, he didn't die. Now we're here. And this world, we can definitely prove isn't real, Torcala.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the part of it that she thought, like, okay, doing this will trigger something. And from that point, everyone except Torque, in a sense, is, super happy with the scenario. But speaking of which, thoughts on Torcala?
It's, typical kind of dream world. I wasn't too into it because I'm not really a huge fantasy fan anyway, but yeah, it's just it just seems very typical.
Honestly, I felt honestly thought it feels a bit like what a nerd thinks a bro values and cares about. You know what I mean?
You think? This does seem very how do you say it does seem very nerdy in some sense.
So yeah, but then with this kind of bro spin on it, I don't know. Just again, not to disrespect Joshua Dessart, so the writer.
Yeah.
So not in terms of I'm sure he's a nerd. It's not that, but I don't know. He just kind of came across a little bit at times let's see, what do bros like? They'd be like beer and the Kardashians and I don't know. I just kind of gave that feeling that these were just things that he felt. Rather than having, and again, not to say oh, you have to get into the mindset of the bro. but I don't know, I just didn't feel at times genuine, I feel.
Yeah.
Which, in some ways could work since, it is just a dream. But it didn't really feel like a true dream for him at times.
Well, I mean, also the thing is, you got to remember that Torque is not a real bro.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, we were talking about this. I mean, the only things that he knows is the bros that he saw on TV when he was bedridden. So I mean, technically this is pretty much accurate to what he thinks, like the character thinks a bro would think. So maybe the writer was even better than you gave him credit for, because he saw what a bro would look like through the eyes of someone who's only been watching reality TV.
Honestly, that's a fair point. So that's
yeah.
Score 1 for Chris.
Schooled you.
But that's also where it gets tricky.
Don't you dare start disrespecting the writer, huh?
So I'm not disrespecting, so I'm not dissing. No, but I guess yes, sometimes these tricky things with, like, oftentimes it's the arguments, like here the argument works.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I feel it's those kinds of arguments you can like pull out of your ass to basically what's it called, excuse or justify anything, like, analysis wise.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, maybe it's so poorly written to, represent this, or maybe it's poorly written to make fun of poorly written things. It was like, oh, genius. So I don't know, but you're right, because I mean those were the arguments I've used myself in previous Harbinger volumes.
Right.
So that he is, it's what he thinks is cool and awesome. So without actually having grown up as one. All right. So, but then there's also another question here, or not really quite. Well, yeah, I question. The whole like experiment set up by Ingrid, at the Harbinger Foundation, setting him up with these dreams. So, what are your thoughts on the like concept of that? I mean, it's not something new in fiction, but when she was mentioning the idea of this like sort of rehabilitation as a prison sentencing.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like? Do you think that could have some value, assuming we could do the same thing in real world, but I guess with machines or something?
Oh, we're getting really psychological here.
I guess, but I didn't think of it the first time I read it, because we've always, we've seen The Matrix, we've seen, any other thing with controlled dreams. But here, when she was mentioning sort of the true purpose of it, I was thinking like, it's actually setting people up to experience experiences that they'll feel is real. Could that change how people behave?
I mean, yeah, well, that's the thing about people, is that you can kind of, I mean, I think they would need to learn certain values, but we all kind of have, I mean, not thinking about all the unprivileged, or the privileges that some people have versus the privileges that some other people have, but we basically all have kind of the same chance for certain things, like being hardworking, pushing as far as we can, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you're assuming that these are people who are in prison, who are getting this treatment, they've done something bad in their life. Like, let's say they're dealing drugs or something like that, and they dropped out of school because they were getting a lot of money from dealing drugs and stuff, like whatever. So then here we go, we're going to show you how your life could be if you had not started dealing drugs and you stayed in school and you studied hard and you became, like, I don't know, ironically, a pharmaceutical sales rep. So you have a lot of money, you have a fulfilling job, you feel good about yourself and all that stuff. So the question is, where do you start that dream? Do you start it at the point where, like, the decision was made? Like where his decision was made to either go sell drugs or stay in school? Or do you start the dream when he's already a pharmaceutical sales rep? Because I think there's a big difference, because you have to either learn that hard work begets results, or you have to show him how great this life could be if you had done something right. And I feel like, both ways you kind of have this problem, because if you already show him what life is like, he's going to wake up at some point and then realize that his life isn't like that, and then fall into probably a very deep depression, because he doesn't know how to get there, to get to that life. He knows this life could have been his, but because of the stupid decision he made when he was younger, he can't have that anymore. However, if you then also show him the beginning of that part where he makes the decision, he will wake up again and feel bad again because he made the wrong decision, basically, and now he's in prison. So it's kind of hard, I feel, to show people what they could have had. If you know what I mean, like, they just kind of, I think if you show people what they could have had, you just make them depressed. What you have to show them is the life that they can have with what they've already done. Because if you've already been sentenced to prison once, you're not going to have a very easy life, especially not in America. Let's assume this takes, we're talking about America here. Because you are a felon, depending on what you did, you might be blacklisted in certain places, all that kind of stuff. So him being able to show him what could have happened if he had made the right decision when he was a teenager, it would just depress people, and people would just not want to change their lives anyway. They can't change their lives because they don't know. Oh man, I'm talking out of my ass right here, but they just don't have this feeling of, I can still change something.
No, but it's, again, I don't think you're talking out of your ass.
I started talking in circles at the end there, but basically I just feel it's something that I feel that you can't really, I guess, show someone their perfect life and then expect them to go try and get it because their situation has changed.
I guess the idea would be more to basically inception it, in the sense of making them believe it's their choice or something. But of course, for me, otherwise, because certainly there could be useful applications of it. Yeah. The usual question with anything like this is, in the end, like, who decides what's abhorrent behavior? I'm sure, like, someone would try to use that kind of method to cure homosexuality, for example. Yeah. So, so that's kind of stuff I can see very easily abused, especially since this kind of setup would probably require, large, like, government funding or corporate funding. So it's not something you can just kind of... But still, I just found, for me, it was simply just her mention of it being used as a prison and as well as a rehabilitation program. And I think you brought up some nice points about that. Let's see here... So, yeah, Animalia gets some more screen or panel time, I guess we'd call it.
Yeah, she was awesome.
So she's, she's, I think, my favorite within the Harbinger side of Valiant. Oh, yeah. And it's like, there's just something cute. I've always loved, like, cute little girls with superpowers, because it's, it's like this, like, Powerpuff Girls mentality. Yeah. It's this contrast.
It just really helps that her, animals are all... like children's drawings. I mean, not children's drawings, basically cartoons.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because we started like doodling at first, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's a kid, that's a kid drawing. But then later it's like, actually, this is good animation. This is good animation drawings.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like good
perspective. Like cartoons, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not rendered like the rest of the world.
Right. I love it. I mean, it's just so happy. I mean, especially like that whole. Was it the Coyote and the Roadrunner thing?
Yes, but with the realistic Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Oh, please God, I have a family.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So, that's really fun, as well as then the whole, maybe it's from my end, since also I am an animator, but the idea then of her own, like, her OCs, basically. Yeah. It's like coming to life. But then it's so creepily too. Just slicing off the heads of people and stuff. It's kind of like, yeah. And all just a skeleton pelican. I love that name.
Yeah, that's such a good idea.
Skeleton pelican.
I mean, it wouldn't be able to fly for shit, but yeah.
So no, it shouldn't be alive at all, should it?
That's not the part we're discussing, Humphrey.
No, I don't know. It's like
Assuming a pelican could be a skeleton, could it fly?
so, but what's called?
I guess if you throw it hard enough.
No, but like it'd be like what's it called? Like I'd kind of have like love to headcanon her becoming a cartoonist or something when she grows up.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming she can live a normal life, so all the crazy stuff going on. I mean, she probably doesn't have a social security number or anything since she's been kept away and stuff like that.
Yeah, she can just move to Europe where we don't have something like that.
Yeah. So no, it's just really fun. Like her sequences was really fun.
Yeah, I really like them too.
So and again, this was like a cool power. And I like this kind of. I guess you could say it's a category of power within the Valiant universe. Not that other people haven't used it, but this whole like hard light construct concept.
Yeah.
I like the versatility of it because you get Torque, who just has this idealized form surrounding him. So it basically sort of like a mech armor.
Yeah.
And basically, I guess the same thing for Monica Jim, really. Except for then when she was in a coma and her imagination came to life. But I don't know, I guess like the concept of this hard light construct. So it could be like anything and it can take on real world properties, but it's still just a psychic projection. So I don't know, I haven't really seen that described as such in other like superhero comics. I'm sure they have, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's not a hard light. I was just thinking about Vixen, but it's not a hard light projection. They just kind of sometimes like represented by giving her like an outline of the animal that she's currently possessing.
Exactly.
And then it just disappears.
Yeah, to illustrate what power, like, what animal she's taking from.
No, I can't even think of it. I'm kind of thinking now as well. I can't remember anyone that has like a power like that.
So yeah, I'm also trying to think of it. I guess in a sense you could say also Green Lantern as a whole is just hard light projections.
Yeah, but it's not a psychic
exactly.
Kind of
it's technically.
Well, is it though?
It's technically technology.
Yeah.
I mean, it's alien technology, but technology nonetheless.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and also then it always has that green shimmer, and is always kind of part of.
Yeah, well, it's the energy.
So, but again, I don't know, I just really like it, and so I'm gonna start reading more of the new series coming out. That's come out, Generation Zero, because I believe she's part of that. Oh no, she's not part of that. She's part of the new Renegade series that started.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I just really like her. She's cool. And yeah, I don't know. It's I did have this other question here too. What did you think about the volume as a whole? Because personally, I felt it's one of those things where really, in the end, we're back to where we started with very little having changed.
Yeah, you're right. Now that you said it, I also realized that literally nothing has changed.
I mean, again, it was an interesting thing happening, and I guess we got to see, like, character-wise, we got to learn a lot.
Yeah, but, well, then one thing did change. It was the whole Harada thing.
Well, we definitely learned a lot more about him, and just got to see him being more vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally in a coma right now.
So catching up on some sleep.
Yep.
Would you ever do that?
But that's what I mean is that, yeah, it's it could be a huge... I mean, I think something has changed. I mean, obviously, Harada going into a coma doesn't have to have, 4 or 5 issues to put him into a coma. But I actually really liked the volume. I mean, compared to the other Harbinger volumes that we've read so far.
That's interesting, considering you had a lot of like critique on like the first parts of it in terms of like the shock value and the cheapness of that. And
yeah, well, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, I did feel it was very cheap, but I also kind of liked then the character interactions that did come from it. Putting them all into this different, area, it kind of showed some I mean, I don't know what it was, but I kind of did like it. I just liked seeing these characters bounce off each other without some sort of huge thing having to happen. Like, because I feel like it kind of overshadowed, like during the Harbinger Wars, it kind of overshadowed the characters because we had so many characters just fighting and just going back and forth. And then Harada came in, then Hardcore came in and all this kind of stuff where we couldn't like focus on the characters. And this one kind of just took a step back and just let them, just let them kind of play with the characters a little bit, just get them to interact with each other. And we learned a little bit more about this kind of stuff. And, I started disliking Chris even more. And, but they work as a team in the sense of like the comic wise, they work as a team very well.
In terms of like the character personalities.
Yeah. Like from a reader's perspective, I mean, they don't work as a team in the sense of a team.
So no, but the group dynamic is fun. You have you have the leader, you have the what's called, I don't want to say funny guy, but you have like the strong guy, the hopeful person, stuff like that.
Yeah, but they don't have like a team dynamic yet where they can kind of like, they don't have the team dynamic of Iron Man shooting Captain America's shield and him bouncing it off and hitting the aliens. That kind of team dynamic,
So, honestly, I think it's hard to. I'm not sure their power sets really work so well with that at times.
Well, I don't mean necessarily that the powers work together. I'm talking more of like that they know where each other are. They kind of, it kind of feels like, it's like, I mean, you've never been on a sports team, but you sometimes have this thing where like, you're playing basketball or volleyball. Like when Alfie and I would play volleyball, we didn't have to talk to each other. He knew where I was going to be. He knew where to set the ball so I could spike it. There was no talk between us. We just had this team feeling of the entire team. That's why our high school volleyball team was so successful, is that we just had this bond that we didn't have to talk to each other. We didn't have to do anything. We knew where the other person was because it's this feeling. And this team doesn't have it yet. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it doesn't have it yet. So, yeah.
All right. No, that's interesting to hear, though. Was what you actually liked it compared to the others, like the other Harbinger.
Again, that's very relative.
Yeah, no, I get that, but still, that's. So I'm sort of surprised that this was the one that kind of like, this was better. Maybe because it wasn't a real Peter Stanchik then for most of the time.
Maybe it wasn't so annoying, but I gotta say I did like his perfect day. Especially, I love that they changed the. I don't know if they changed the artist necessarily.
Yeah, they did.
They just changed the art. Yeah, no, I really like that.
Well, that's where it works very well, especially when you see the change on the same page. That it doesn't feel so much of oh crap, I can't finish. Can someone else do it?
Yeah, exactly.
There it feels much more clear that we're switching between dream and real world here.
Yeah,
but it was a good style for it though.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was very sugary sweet. Like it was like felt very happy. Like looking at that art, it was very.
Yeah, I kind of had this Ed and Eddie feel to it.
I see what you mean. Like not specifically like the design, but
not the designs, no, but the color scheme, like the way that they work together. I mean, if you look at on page 83 of our PDF, where the three of them are just in the top panel there, I don't know, the hard, like these really saturated colors and stuff like that just made it feel very Ed and Eddie, and it kind of felt like it's a cul-de-sac and stuff like that. So it's just like, that's pretty much it. So it was really nice. I really liked it.
Yeah, but then that's, I mean, obviously by that time we knew, of course, it was a dream. But I guess that's kind of what you would have wanted more when Harada takes on the role of his father. Something like that where...
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. But I didn't want them to like immediately recognize it,
Yeah, it should have been, if it started like this from Peter's point of view. Obviously, first of all, we know it was fake because, we know he's not living at home with his parents.
Right.
But it would have been some kind of creepiness with, hey, Dad, hugging him really, but it is Harada. Oh, Peter, how are you?
Yeah. But like if it could have been interesting if it was like the salesman of the car salesman. Like if he suddenly he had in one shot he was just clean shaven, and the other shot he had like Harada's facial like facial hair. Something like that, just like one shot where then the reader could be like, wait a minute, well, that was weird. And maybe the characters don't notice it because, they're busy with stealing cars. So, yeah.
So, yeah.
But it was really nice. I don't know, I just really liked this kind of stuff.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the next volume, so I'm not going to spoil. But I feel that's where I personally feel it really picks up in terms of stakes and just the overall excitement level.
Yeah.
So also I don't know. We'll see when we get to this point because I feel Harbinger out of all the Valiant titles is the one that changes the most during the publishing history of the Valiant.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, obviously that already kind of make you ask questions and stuff, but I don't know, it has a very it's very experimental. It seems like I'm not sure what the sales were, if they try to change things up all the time or whatnot. But I don't know, I feel really it gets very different very often. So but yeah, we'll see. It'll be a little while till we get there.
Yeah.
So
there's one thing that I just want to mention about the other volumes that we've read so far. That that comic that keeps on, or the preview that keeps on showing up in some of our
the ones with old Harada
volumes?
flying?
Yeah. That still hasn't happened, has it?
No, I think it might be next or the one after that.
Because that's just really confusing. I've already started skipping those previews anyway. As soon as I recognize that it's a preview, I skip it. Because I think those things take a lot away, because now I can see that Harada's going to be old Harada, because he fell into that sleep. But, you know what I mean? It kind of ruins a lot of the stuff. So I don't know when these are published or something like that, but
I'm actually curious if I'm not sure if the volumes are updated. That would be kind of interesting, though, if the Comixology volumes.
Yeah, that would be actually a
update to have the latest.
They update the ads on the comic.
Oh god,
really
it's cool. Well, not impossible, of course. It's digital files, but still, it's like you said, especially when it's related. It's one thing if we're reading Bloodshot and there's a Harbinger preview. But if we're reading Bloodshot and then what's called a preview for Bloodshot Reborn, it's whoa, what's going on there? Or whoa, so this happens?
Yeah.
We can assume, of course, that we have had a lot of character deaths, but so far within the typical, realm of possibility, you know what I mean? The protagonist's immortality is still otherwise, strong in this universe.
Yeah.
But so the idea that there's more comics after this one, I thought he might have died next issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not an issue really, but it's more about specifics. What did they lose their powers? When is that going to happen? Or wait, who's this new character? Or wait, this bad guy's a good guy now?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's kind of important that at least I skip these previews. Because I just don't want to be ruined or be spoiled for something, because again, we're so far behind.
So yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot when we're reading the volumes, of course these are bundled after the fact, so they're bundled while the other issue is coming out next week or next month or something like that. So yeah, kind of have to keep away from those previews.
But speaking of which, though, just a little bit, just in general, a Valiant thing. I'm not sure if you saw it online, but apparently starting with the new Exo Manowar series starting, they're going to have a new method with the volumes, the way they publish them. Apparently now they're going to make free issue arcs, and all volumes will cost $9.99 instead of the whole 14 and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious. It feels a little bit little in terms of just page count, but it also feels kind of nice if they just keep it shorter in the sense of, okay, here's 3 issues, that's one complete story, then we, it's still it still continues, of course, but then like, now we have another new story, within the same setup. I'm curious to see how the actual storytelling is affected, because that has to be like an editorial mandate, I assume.
Yeah, because then they have to kind of keep arcs to like 3 issues, right?
Yeah, well, again, it'll be interesting to see how they define arcs.
Yeah.
So, because obviously, I mean, if they were doing that for these, like this Harbinger volume, for example, it would have to be like very streamlined.
Exactly.
But honestly, I'm all for that because, well, you know me, I like old comics a lot, where they're a lot quicker.
Oh yeah.
Again, depends. You can go the other extreme. I've seen some great examples of like during 4 panels, there's like 4 scene changes.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, yeah, it's like a really old Batman comic, something like. So you'll see like the criminals doing something in the first panel. So what's called. Meanwhile, then it's at the police station, Commissioner Gordon calling Batman. Then it's at Batman's, and then Batman at this crime scene or something.
Wow.
Like, yeah, really quick with dialogue balloons and captions, covering whatever happens in between.
Yeah.
So that's an extreme, of course, but I don't know. I just like the idea of telling the story. Like, I recently got a hold of this like Batman the Animated Series comic book, like the first volume of those, and they were very fun to read because, except for like a few 2-parters, it was just one complete story. Like, the writers sat down and thought, okay, let's see, what villains do we have? What can we do with them? So like, what about a Killer Croc kind of goes semi-legit and is taking part like in boxing ring? A little like, and then go from there. It's not the greatest story, but it's, they're playing with it, they're figuring things out.
Yeah.
So, or what if Riddler has a confidence crisis because Batman always figures out his riddles? So, and then it turns out that when he gets caught at the end, it wasn't because what's called Batman figured out his riddle. He just got lucky. And then he's happy because, oh my god, he didn't figure it out. Yes, I'm smarter than him, even though he's going to jail. Like little things like just nice short stories, like figuring out what we can do. And I kind of love to see that here too, where it's because 3 issues I feel works fine because it's almost like 3-act structure.
Right.
You'll have the first issue kind of setting it up, like, okay, so this is the new problem. Have most of like sort of the action stuff going on in the middle, and then we conclude it.
Right.
I mean,
I also do like that whole short story kind of thing. I've said this before also on this podcast that, that was the thing that I enjoyed about South Park is that every single new week or new episode I could look forward to a new South Park episode not knowing what they're going to do. And so if there was an episode that I didn't enjoy, I could then at least look forward to the next episode because it would be completely new. And I think if they would do something like this, like for example, the story that you were just saying, the Croc one, or Killer Croc one where he does boxing, that's interesting. I'm not too fond of it. But then the Riddler one, I thought that was awesome. Sounds like a great thing. And that would then kind of, if it was a 3 comic issue, and then the third comic was about Catwoman, for example, that would be really interesting. That would be a really nice thing to read. And even though one of the issues I didn't enjoy, I could say otherwise that the bundle is still good. But like with Harbinger Volume 3, for example, if the whole thing was just something about the same story that I just didn't like anyway, just didn't like the story, then the whole volume for me is just, not good for me. I just don't enjoy the whole volume,
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's what I mean. That's what I prefer too. I mean, it's like I mentioned with why I like, like the European Donald Duck comics. Because it's not every week, it's like great stories. There's a lot of cheap stories and repeats and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's usually always something, like, oh, that was a nice one, or like, oh, this one has a Karl Barks story in it, and oh, that was actually pretty clever. And
Yeah.
I'm genuinely surprised how clever they can still be. Not that I've read it in like new ones so often now, but even like a few years back, like they were still consistently coming out with good ideas, I feel, for being something that's been done so often. So, but that's one more last thing then, because I think we're about done really. But just because you mentioned with Volume 3 and made me think of Harbinger Wars, I'm gonna have to double check and see what exactly it is. But seems like there's coming a Harbinger Wars 2.
Oh, Jesus.
I guess Valiant wasn't keeping track of Marvel and their ill-fated Civil War 2.
Yeah.
So let's see if theirs fares better.
Yeah.
Just kind of feel. I mean, it doesn't mean that it will be bad. It just kind of when you put 2 on it, it immediately. I mean, it basically already says it's going to be a repeat. Just something different.
Say that to Shrek 2.
That's true. That's the best of the Shreks.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even know. I mean, I was just.
No, but it is. It is. It's.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think most people. I mean, even though.
How about Star Trek True? Star Trek True. Star Trek 2.
Yeah, that's also considered the best one. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you shouldn't be so overzealous about calling everything that has a 2 bad.
You're right.
Maybe we just wait and see if Harbinger Wars 2 is actually too good for you.
Ooh, all right. You schooled me twice this episode. All right.
Yeah. So
I don't know, just because I did read Civil War 2, so as it was being published, and I don't know, it was kind of like, honestly, the core idea was fine, but it's just, and it's the big problem when you have this big superhero universe. It's way too much.
Oh, Jesus, Humphrey. Now the superhero universe is too big. The cinematic universe is too small. Can you just come on.
So just Earth's mightiest heroes is the perfect balance.
Okay.
No, but it's just the usual thing with, all right, so who should we get involved in here? Why are they fighting? Does this make sense? So I guess, it's like a lot of people have pointed out in the long time, it seems like it's the heroes fighting each other more than fighting villains. So, but yeah, whatever. But all right, I think that's about it. That's all my questions. Do you have any other statement or something you want to add?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I guess I said everything I wanted to say in the podcast.
Perfect. Well, that was the 25th episode of Hardcast, detailing Harbinger Volume 4. For more content from me and Chris, follow us on Twitter at Humphrey_Aaron and at Christian D. Claus. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or listen to us directly on valianthardcast.podbean.com. And remember to like us on facebook.com/valianthardcast. Catch us later for our next episode discussing Shadow Man Volume